Have you ever felt like you're addicted to self-improvement? Like you're constantly trying to fix something that's wrong with you? And as long as you're always working on yourself, maybe you'll finally deserve whatever love comes your way. But you never stop. You never pause to believe that someone might love you just as you are. It's like you're endlessly bargaining and apologizing for your existence, 100% of the time. And deep down, you believe that you'll only be happy, truly alive, once you become that perfect version of yourself you've created in your head. Damn, that hurts. You keep fixing yourself, polishing, upgrading, performing, hoping that if you just heal enough, someone will finally stay. But the truth is, you're not healing, you're coping. And behind all that self-improvement might be something darker: shame. Because here's what no one tells you. Addictive behaviors in the shame-bound person develop as a replacement for human intimacy. Let that sink in. We don't just scroll endlessly, binge-watch shows, overeat, or obsess over self-help books because we're lazy or bored. We do it because we're disconnected from people, from love, from ourselves. Here's an example. A woman spends hours every day on wellness TikToks, journaling, manifesting, counting calories, building routines. On the surface, it looks like growth. But if you look closer, she hasn't had a real conversation in weeks. She doesn't let anyone close. Every part of her day is optimized, but her soul is starving. That's not self-love. That's survival. That's addiction in disguise. A coping mechanism built to cover the shame of not feeling enough to be loved as is. The cycle of shame, isolation, addiction, emptiness hits straight to the core of many women in their 20s to 40s, especially those who are self-aware but still feel deeply alone. And if you stay with this video until the end, you might finally see the pattern and find your own way to break the cycle. The one where shame eats you from the inside and leaves nothing but silence and emptiness behind. Somewhere in the past, your will was broken. To heal it, you need time and resources. Today, we will talk about these 3 resources. To be shame-bound means that somewhere along the way, usually very young, you learned that your feelings were a problem. Not just inconvenient, but wrong. You cried, and they told you to be quiet. You were angry, and they called you dramatic. You were hurt, and they told you to toughen up. So you did. You learned to smile instead of speak, to perform instead of feel, to suppress instead of express. And now, even when you're alone, you apologize for your emotions inside your own head. That's what shame does. It trains you to disconnect from your own truth, until one day, you can no longer tell if you're strong or just numb. The most painful part about healing is remembering back to all the moments of self-doubt and imagining where you would have been in life if it were not for the abuse we suffered. The most painful part about healing is remembering back to all the moments of self-doubt and imagining where you would have been in life if it were not for the abuse we suffered. At the core of this pain is shame, not the kind you feel when you make a mistake, but the kind that takes root in your nervous system, the shame that whispers. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I was never enough to begin with. And so instead of blaming the abuse, you blame yourself. You build your personality around damage control. You become the overachiever, the perfectionist, the pleaser, not out of ambition, but out of fear that if you're not perfect, you'll be discarded again. That's the legacy of shame. It doesn't just hurt, it steals potential. It keeps you small, quiet, obedient. It makes you second-guess every desire, every step forward. And then, years later, when you finally start to heal, you look back and it hits you. All the things you could have been, all the places you could have gone, if you hadn't been taught to doubt yourself from the very beginning. And that's when the grief begins, not just for what was done to you, but for the life you were too ashamed to believe you deserved. Toxic shame isn't just an emotion. It's a slow, corrosive force that eats you from the inside out. It whispers, not screams. You're not enough. You're too much. You should have known better. And over time, that shame creates emptiness, a hollow space where self-worth should be. But the tragedy is this: you don't leave that space empty. You fill it with more shame. You blame yourself for the emptiness. You feel weak for feeling broken. You punish yourself for not getting over it already. And that's when it begins, the downward spiral. A cycle where shame leads to avoidance. Avoidance leads to disconnection. Disconnection leads to destructive coping. And the coping only deepens the shame. You start doing things that don't align with who you are, just to numb the pain. Scrolling endlessly, overeating, overworking, or chasing people who hurt you, just to feel something. But your body can't handle the weight of chronic shame. Your nervous system starts to shut down. You lose access to clarity, joy, intimacy. You isolate further. And the deeper you fall, the harder it is to reach for anything that could actually heal you. Because shame doesn't just tell you you are broken, it tells you you're not even worth fixing. Where does toxic shame come from? Most of the time, it starts at home, not through loud words, but through patterns, through energy, through how emotions were or weren't handled. A girl once wrote, "My toxic shame comes from my dad. Growing up, he would just silently watch me and my siblings. No words, just this heavy look of disappointment, anger, or annoyance. It made us feel uncomfortable and guilty for no reason, like we were a burden. Sometimes I felt like he hated us, or maybe he just didn't know how to be kind to his own kids, even though he was super friendly with strangers. Seems like nothing, right? No screaming, no violence, but it leaves a scar that lasts a lifetime. Because children don't just hear words, they absorb atmospheres. And when love feels conditional or absent, a seed of shame is planted. Then comes the media, which doesn't just reflect reality, it distorts it. From hyper-filtered beauty standards to curated images of success, what we're really seeing is the top 1% of the social pyramid, but our brains take it in as a baseline. And so 99% of people walk around feeling inferior, like they're behind, broken, or simply not enough. Their real-life achievements suddenly feel meaningless. Because next to perfection, authenticity always feels like failure. And then come the double binds, the impossible standards set for women. Be successful, but stay soft. Have a family, but don't lose your body. Be independent, but make him feel needed. Speak up, but don't be too much. These demands contradict each other, and the more you try to win this game, the more shame you collect, because it's rigged, and everyone plays, some more, some less, but no one walks away whole. If your goal is to actually break the cycle of toxic shame, then let's skip the pretty advice. Here's what works, not because it's nice, but because it breaks the architecture of shame at the level of your nervous system and identity. Step 1. Stop being the observed. Become the observer. Shame thrives when you live your life as if someone's always watching, like you're constantly being judged by your father's voice, by society, by Instagram. The real shift happens when you stop being the actor in someone else's play and start being the director. What to do? Right now, Write down 5 moments from the past week when you felt shame, guilt, or that deep voice of, "I'm not enough." Then ask yourself, whose voice is this? Is it really mine, or something I absorbed? What would I say to a friend who felt this way? This is how you break the autopilot of shame. You drag it out of the shadows and into the light, because shame lives in darkness. Your job is to expose it and watch it dissolve. Step 2, physiological grounding, technique, somatic rewiring of reactions. Here's the truth. Toxic shame isn't just in your mind. It's in your body, locked into your muscles, your breath, your posture. It lives as a memory of threat. The moment the thought, "I'm not enough," appears, your body reacts like you're in danger, and your brain interprets that reaction as proof. See? You are broken. And so the cycle repeats. What to do? When you get triggered, don't think, don't analyze. Just stop and breathe. Inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 6. Let your nervous system settle before your mind spins the story. Then make contact with your body. Most people can't do this at first. That's normal. You may need yoga or just your own simple rituals. Try pressing your palms together, rocking gently back and forth, moving your arms slowly, or doing a body awareness scan. Imagine your consciousness as a small particle inside your body traveling through you, feeling every sensation. First, you learn to feel, then you learn to regulate. This is how you reprogram the physical reaction loop. Use this somatic phrase, "I am safe, I am present. The shame is old. It's not mine anymore." And if you do this daily, you start to break the body's association that says, "Shame, or threat. I am bad." Step 3, new behavior, new identity. Technique, break the shame loop through opposition. Shame traps you in a role. Stay quiet. Don't take risks. Don't be seen. It convinces you that visibility equals danger. And here's the hard truth. You will never feel ready. You can't think your way out of shame. You have to act your way out. What to do? Choose one small action per day that you normally avoid because of shame, and do it anyway. Examples: leave a comment you'd normally be too afraid to post. Wear something that embraces your femininity. Record a video where you speak from the heart. No filters, no perfection. Start small, but stay consistent. Each time, track how you feel before and after. Notice the shift. Over time, this builds a new self-image, one that's no longer rooted in "I am wrong," but in "I am becoming." And that's enough. Remember, shame is not a belief. It's a survival habit. You don't argue with it. You override it through new behavior. If this message hits something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Send this video to a friend who needs to hear it too, because shame thrives in silence, but it dissolves in connection. This is She Needs To. Her This, a channel where we dive into 100 of the most pressing topics for modern women navigating a world that often demands too much, too fast, too perfectly. You're not alone in this, and you were never broken to begin with.